Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Dinner Table Detective Season 1, Episode 8. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're picking up where the last episode left off with Reiko taking Kageyama to the crime scene. I think it's interesting that the timetable isn't what you thought it was. I thought maybe Kyoshiro would arrive before them, but it turns out he actually showed up after they were already there. So I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting development. But yeah, Kageyama reveals to them because she's like Kageyama's perspective to Reiko is okay. Typically, if a painter is maybe right-handed, you'd assume they start from the left and work their way to the right. But Hiroki, Horakai, might have been Hiroki, Kezan's son being like, hey, he started over there by the window, and it ends up being exactly what I thought it was, because it's right, there had to be a secret passage, because even I thought they went out of their way to be like, oh, he started painting from the right, and he started painting with the window. So they just assume right, it's a fake window, why would it be real? And turns out it leads to a secret passage, and they make their way through. And as they go in, props to Kageyama for being prepared. Not only does he have a flashlight, he has a baton. Because this actually kind of got me thinking, because I was I'm unclear about, I know Japan is not a fan of guns and stuff like that, and I know even cops are severely do not use their gun unless it's a last resort, but I don't know what their typical defense is. I think it maybe be batons, maybe a stun gun or something like that. I don't know. Because the fact is Reiko doesn't have one, but it might be a thing of the difference between regular detectives and inspectors versus regular cops or something like that, or the case may be. I also liked how that was stylized, with the darkness of the red outlining of the characters. I was like, oh, that looks so dope and eerie and scary, because it's meant to be, because what's her name, Shoko Sasano, she's in there and she looks deranged and she's attacking with a sword, and I guess she was in there all night, so she went a little deranged, because after she killed Kizan, she's basically hidden there the entire time because she couldn't leave. So that's why she's been missing, is because she had to stay there, because it's she didn't have anything to drink or eat, just being locked in that darkness because she didn't have any light, and because she couldn't leave with the police all over the crime scene, people still being in the house. There was no time, because she could never be too sure of, oh, can I leave now, because I might stumble across somebody and people are like, hey, why are you here? So, but yeah, during the struggle, Kageyama defends Reiko and tells her to run, but she's like, no, as a detective you don't run from the situation. So she tries to get involved, but it's pure darkness, so she ends up tackling Kageyama. He gets knocked out for a little bit, and then Shoko ends up attacking Reiko, and it seems oh my god, Kageyama defends her, and she's kind of upset. She's like, you hurt someone very important to me, and she tosses it and tussles is the word I'm looking for with Shoko, and ends up ultimately knocking her out. And at first she's kind of oh my god, Kageyama, I can't believe you died for me. And then Kageyama's like, yes ma'am. At first I was like, oh, did he throw a dummy or something at her, a mannequin body or something? But it turns out no, it was Kishiro. He defended her, her. I don't know if it's interesting that he managed to do that, because we didn't get any insight. So he must have heard the voices. Because we know he was there for his hat, but he must have heard their voices and the struggle, and he must have bust in there, and maybe in that time frame, because it was still dark. So where the lighting would have allowed him to see and know what was going on, but maybe he just got a good sense of direction and stuff. But he ended up protecting Reiko. So now Reiko feels conflicted, because obviously she was really concerned about Kageyama despite everything. It's hey, Kageyama's always there by my side, you're serving me willingly. But now it's oh, Kirishiro saved me, but now you're kind of feeling a little bad about it. It's why did that bastard save me? It turns out he's not dead, which makes you go I mean, at first you're oh my god, I can't believe he did it, because he's such a self-centered prick. But now it's oh, he actually saved me, and now she feels weird about it. Because later on, it's oh, I have to drop him home, and he always wants me to get in his car and stuff. It's fine. This is the only time this is going to happen. But anyway, we find out the truth of what this case was about. It's actually interesting, because Shoko was actually, she killed Keisan in self-defense because he was strangling her because they had a disagreement because they were initially making a deal about the gold coins because it turns out the gold coins aren't fake. They're real, but they're trying to pretend they're fake because if they're really like real treasure, the government will confiscate them. It's like as long as you don't get the police involved, you can keep them to yourselves. And Shoko was going to blackmail him into like giving her like her share of the coins. But she ended up wanting more, so he strangled her, but then she ended up stabbing him. So you're like, oh, it's a little bit of a self-defense situation. And was it Maki or was it the other Maraki? I can't remember. Masaki, right? I believe. Wasn't it Maki and Masaki? I think it's Masaki who is the quote unquote niece, but she's like a family member to Keisan and kind of reveals like what he wanted to use the treasure for. He kind of had altruistic reasons of like he wanted to take that gold and he wanted to kind of restore a lot of like damaged art, which are like, oh, that sounds sweet and nice. So he had altruistic reasons. It's just kind of sad that it turned into this situation, you know, that gold kind of brought out the worst in everybody in that situation. So yeah, Shoko got arrested. So did Tomei and Hiraki because they falsified documents. We know that they were like they must have known about the gold coins and they try to maybe falsify to be like, oh, these are fake coins so they could keep the riches. I don't know. Or maybe there's other stuff that they falsified stuff for so they got arrested. So this whole thing kind of came to a conclusion in that regard. But like I said, the whole Kishiro of it all and the, Kageyama driving beside Reiko as she's driving Kirishiro to the hospital, and he's like, oh, like, take care, like, basically it was like, take care of Sleeping Beauty or something like that. And but obviously, despite how annoyed she is about him and just all the things that make him him, she just admits like, well, you did save me, so this will be the one time we're going to let this slide. And the sad thing is he'll never actually be able to properly enjoy it because he's basically sleeping and kind of slipping in and out of consciousness, that situation, so he doesn't really get to embrace it and enjoy it like he wants to. So that's the conclusion of that case. Then we move into the second case of the episode, which once again, that little code opening like interstitial that happens beforehand where like Reiko is still pissed about the whole Kishiro of it all. And she's like, why did that bastard have to say, why did it have to be him? So she turns into a bit of a mean drunk. Her friends are like, yo, you need to kind of let that go. Like, is it really that bad that he saved you? But then this other guy came over because she was swinging her beer around, spilled something on him. He's like, oh, you're so pretty, let me introduce you to my boss. She proceeded to step on his foot and give him a crazy kick and send him flying into a tree. It's like, wow. And then Kageyama was walking over. It's like, what went down in the small amount of time I was away? It's pretty embarrassing. And obviously Kageyama uses that against Reiko, being like, oh my god, your inelegancy and stuff like that. And because she's like, oh, shouldn't you take a little more pity on me and be saying like some stuff to cheer me up? And he's like, nah, like, why should I? You being inelegant because you were drunk wasn't something new. Like, it literally happens to everyone. She's like, could you stop calling me inelegant? He's like, all right, fine, I'll stop calling you inelegant. And she's like, there you go again, you're still using the word, just don't even use the word at all. So, and then he drops her off at the crime scene, and he's like, yeah, go off and do your thing and be as wildly outrageous as you normally are. And she's like, wait, what? Did he say wildly outrageous? So I was like, I love that combative relationship that they have. So, but I was wondering if that interstitial, like I said, that cold opening would have anything to do with the episode, and it does. It's like the VTuber one, where it's like, not the VTuber one. It was the other case with the guy who was dating multiple women. That one, that case, like there was that festival or whatever, and you're like, does that have anything to do with it? And obviously it plays into like some of the witnesses and some of the things like from the main case of the episode revolve around that, and that kind of acted as like a cold opening for that case. So it seemed like it didn't connect. I initially thought the victim in this episode, what's his name, Ichiguro, I believe. I thought he was the same dude that Reiko like kicked into the tree. I like, just when we just saw the body, I wondered if it was. It's not the same guy, but either way, the Leon, was his name Leon Williams, the actor or whatever, like that comes up later in the case. So I'm like, I wonder how relevant that's going to be, especially when we get introduced to Shiho. So it's got to be pretty relevant to some degree. But either way, I thought it was so interesting when Reiko shows up at the crime scene and she sees a guy dressed the way he is. It's like, oh my god, is it Kageyama? She's like, not Kageyama, Kishiro. She's like, oh, you're finally going. He walks up. He's like, what do you mean finally? She's like, nothing. Don't worry about it. And one of the officers who's like, oh yeah, like this guy over here found the body. This punk over here who's dressed kind of similar, and I love how Kishiro is. It's such a sore spot for him because he's like, wait, what are you saying about him being a punk dressed like that? Are you saying I'm dressed like a punk? And even Reiko comments on the way he dresses, and he's like, whoa, is there a problem with the way I dress? She's like, no, like it's great, looks great on you. He's like, yes, of course. It's like, wow, it's such a soft spot for him. It's kind of a I guess because he has his perception of who he is and how awesome he is because of his family and how prestigious and rich, and like him looking kind of not shabby but looking weird or off-putting or not like the greatest. Like he's very egotistical, so it's more a blow to his self-esteem and ego in that regard. But it turns out the victim, Ichiguro, is a journalist, and he ended up, the mode of death is drowned, even though he was found like on a hill. So did someone move his body? So it's probably either like he was drowned in a nearby river and then brought there, or drowned somewhere else and like somewhere outside of a river and then dumped. Like why go through the trouble of moving his body at all is what I'm wondering. So not unless it was an accidental situation, but then like why move the, so I'm curious about that. They end up investigating, learning more about Ichiguro. Like they went to the place that he worked for, and he was the guy that, like, I think he exposed affairs and stuff like that. That was kind of his job. He was actually an independent person that worked with this particular magazine or newspaper or whatever pretty regularly. And I guess he takes up like shots at like a very specific place where like there's double rooms where like people would meet for their fair, and so the person he was currently dealing with was a woman named Shiho, who turns out to be like, she's part of like a well like known married couple, but Reiko knows her for being this the I would assume like lead, because she was like an action star in this role. What was is basically like a Shakespeare's kind of like actiony. It felt like kind of an actiony Sentai type of show, but maybe not quite. And she's a big fan of it. And so she's coming into this case being like, I'm going to prove Shiho had nothing to do with it, because there's no way she would be. But it becomes that conversation of never meet your heroes, because she meets Shiho, and Shiho's kind of like not the greatest, because it's like, oh, like the image of who she thought she was meeting. It's like you get so obsessed with the character that you assume the person is like that. And it's like, well, the person, they were just playing a character. And it seems that character was probably fundamental to probably played a role in why Reiko is all about being a cop, because this character was all about justice and stuff like that. But Shiho kind of was like, yeah, who cares? I don't really know this dude. What's this got to do with me? Oh, you're a fan. Oh, do I have to really deal with an annoying fan? If I don't give you an autograph, will you leave after that? Even though they're telling you we're police officers, she's so dismissive. It's like, oh, I'm tired. Like, I just want to go to sleep. Like, being very, very dismissive. And that's kind of very crushing for Reiko. So, obviously, we're just super early in the investigation. So, I'm assuming next episode will be, well, the entirety of next episode will be the continuation and conclusion of this case. Maybe they will do another case, but it feels like because we started we know so little going into like the next episode for this case, it feels like the next episode would be this entire case. But we'll have to wait to see. But no real speculation at this point in time, because they were bringing up the whole element of Leo Williams' name came up again because he was on some magazines. It turns out Kishiro's family is sponsors for that film that he's doing, because the film hasn't streamed in Japan yet. So it's interesting that Shiho, like, she's part of her married couple thing, and it's like, well, this guy was investigating you. What did he stumble across that would have been like a big like bomb or reveal? Would it have been an affair? I doubt it. It might be something else, but it might tie into the Leo Williams of it all. I'm curious what that could be. Once again, just don't know enough at this point in the case. So we'll see where the next episode ultimately ends up taking us going forward with everything. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.